Hello everyone, welcome back to the Drive Guide, where today I have the 2020 Ford Escape. Now, I've already covered this car to some detail. I was able to go off on the press launch for this car down in Kentucky, but the vehicle that you see in front of me today has the 1.5 litre turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, and I didn't really have much time behind the wheel of that version of the Escape, so that's why I have it with me today, to really see what it's like as an everyday driver, but if it continues the theme of what, in my mind, the Ford Escape is all about, which it has always had some element of driving enthusiasm to it, where a lot of vehicles in this class are sedate, very removed for the road, and they're more catered for the practicality than they are driving enjoyment. So that's what we're going to really talk about in this review today, and bring up the pros and cons that I think are most significant with this Ford Escape. And then at the end of the video, I'll place it in my ranking system to see how it compares against other compact crossovers in its class. So the exact Ford Escape I have with me today is the 1.5 litre SEL model with quite a few upgrades added onto it. The 1.5 litre engine, like I said, is a 3-cylinder and unbelievably has cylinder deactivation. It produces 180 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque. Pretty good numbers for an engine this small. And when it comes to the cylinder deactivation, it's coming along when you might be coasting or very light loads on the highway, and I have truly not been able to feel any sort of engagement. Saying that though, there is no item that comes up on either of the screens letting you know that there is one less cylinder getting fuel into it. I kind of wish that was the case. I would like to know when the system has engaged or when it hasn't engaged, me being somewhat fuel conscious. Saying that though, if it has engaged during my time driving it, I haven't been able to perceive it whatsoever. This 1.5 litre turbo does come with front wheel drive as standard, but for an extra $1,500 you can get all-wheel drive on the S, the SE and the SEL. The titanium model only comes with the larger 2 litre engine and all-wheel drive. If towing is important to you, then the 1.5 litre can tow up to 2,000 pounds, but the 2 litre can tow up to 3,500 pounds. The Escape that I'm driving comes with a few different driving modes. We have normal, eco, sport, slippery, and then deep snow / sand. So this 1.5 litre then, I'd say it's a bit noisy for the size of the engine when you're on throttle, when you're just coasting along or sitting at a red light and the auto stop-start system that is standard with both engines hasn't engaged. You don't really feel it. The 1.5 litres power reserve is pretty good, but I have a few issues when it comes with this 8-speed automatic transmission. When you've got your speed limit set, let's say you're going at 50 kilometers an hour and you just want to bump it up 5 kilometers or so, and you just put a little bit of foot into the throttle, you've noticed at this point that the engine has really bogged down with the transmission. It is set up to be as fuel efficient as possible, and due to that, of course, it's going to go for the higher gears, but you'll find it getting choked up a bit just for small incremental acceleration. That's when you'll notice the engine struggling, but it isn't due to its power, it's just due to the gear that it is currently cooperating with. But saying that, if you ever demand quick acceleration bursts, like that, the transmission gears down very quickly. The turbocharger has a touch of lag, not too much to really concern yourself about. So in one instance, I don't like the transmission, but in another instance, I do. For most of your time behind the wheel, I don't think you're really going to notice that transmission bogging down. And if it really bothers you, then you could go into sport mode where the needle is hanging out at a higher RPM, so you can have the engine engage in its peak power sooner, but also be less resilient to bogging down. But really, I can't imagine many people actually using this car in sport mode for the majority of their time with it. I will say though that the scrappy nature of the previous Ford Escape, when it came to a bit of a rough and ready attitude, was a reason that I really enjoyed driving it. It was quite old at the time and certainly unrefined comparing to its competition. But with that 2.3 litre engine of what I tried out and a really good steering system, I enjoyed taking it for a spin. And the same applies with this Ford Escape too. Even with this 1.5 litre engine, it does feel quite eager to rev, and the steering in this car is still, I think, pretty good. On the heavier side of things, not much feel coming through, but yeah, hardly the end of the world. Brakes on this car, fantastic. Almost no brake dive unless you really are pinning it down in emergency braking situations. And the refinement on the highway is significantly improved over the previous generation. Getting into that car and then into this one, you'd really think that you're coming into cars from different manufacturers. The interior has a few elements that I like and a few things that irritate me. Things that I like. I feel like I have immense space in this car. I'm sitting in my comfortable driving position, but if someone that was significantly taller than I am sat behind me and I had to push the seat up another 4 inches, I wouldn't mind, because I've got so much knee room, a lot of space to move around my legs. Not all that much thigh support, but on long highway drives I actually don't find it that bad, as I am sitting quite tall and enough of the back end of my legs is being supported. That carries over into the back seats as well, where they are on rails, so you can slide them forwards or backwards depending on what you want to prioritize. You can also recline them back ever so slightly. An annoying feature about the rear seats is that you can't lower them from the rear. You have to lower them by opening up the door and then reaching for that side lever. Sitting behind myself then isn't much of an issue, and really when it comes to all of these cars, they're all going to have a little bit of a drivetrain hump and nothing out of the ordinary here. The problems that I face with this cabin is that it just doesn't feel as wholesome as many of the other cars in this class. It's got the soft plastics where you want them, and the leather seats and the leatherette steering wheel, which is nice, and hard plastics where you expect them. But everywhere that you tap, it just feels hollow, just feels like there isn't any substance. And where you see this diamond cut panel up front is a soft plastic, but in the rear, to save money, Ford has made it hard and rough. So I don't think this cabin is a letdown. I just don't think it's the best in class, and comparing it to the vehicles that I think are better in terms of build quality and materials, it feels a little rough around the edges somehow. The last thing that bothers me with this cabin is the instrument cluster. I know I get in plenty of vehicles these days that have digital screens or don't have digital screens, but this version of this setup just feels like Ford didn't pay any money or attention to it whatsoever. It looks nasty and cheap, and there is a screen in the middle that provides some information to you, but if it was my own vehicle, I would truly pay the extra money to get the digital screen just to avoid looking at this. So for the Camper's Paradise Index, let's get right inside of this Ford Escape. So first thing to note is that the boot floor and how you get things in and out of the boot is quite low. Not as low as a CR-V, but quite impressive. I'm a big fan of that. Now, there isn't too much going on in this cabin space. The model that I have doesn't have a security cover. There's a few places that you can hang things and a 12-volt power outlet, but I don't think it offers as much practicality as some of its competitors. You do have the ability to lift up this false floor. You see you've got a compact spare wheel and a few other spots to put some smaller items. Now this can go down a little bit, and I really mean a little bit. The difference between this height and the other height I just showed really is only adding maybe like another 2 inches, and you'll have these portions of where the false floor was hanging out on poking out. So I think best use of this to place it up top, and it does appear to have a small incline all the way to the base of the seats, and then the seats are a little higher up. So let's get in and see what it's like to try and lay down in the back of a Ford Escape. Oh, damn, I've done it twice. Okay, so climbing in, There's a few obvious issues. For one, we've got the exposed hinge arms down here, so if you were to place your hip right on top of that, it's quite uncomfortable. Me sliding into this space, carrying on with the build quality of this Ford Escape, I just don't feel like I can put a lot of weight on this false floor. So put your center of mass up here, and I could push this seat quite a bit forward and be okay, but there's so much overhang here and into the empty space. Great if you need to store things away, but it might be a little bit of a challenge to get two people in here comfortably. I mean, this is how I imagine I would sleep in the back of a Ford Escape. I just don't want to put any weight on this false floor, and why is that moving backwards? What have you done? Oh. And I just don't feel like I have that much headroom to really lie down. Plenty of space, but not the best car to sleep in if you have someone else to join you. But not the best car to sleep in the back of if you have someone else joining you back here, I think. And so that wraps up my thoughts towards the 1.5 litre Ford Escape. All in all, I know I've had a fair few criticism towards this car, but overall I have enjoyed spending a week with it. I don't think it's the best version of the Escape. I don't think it's the best car in its class, but it's still something that I really think you should consider owning. If you're a fan of the previous Escape and you're looking to buy into this new one, you're immediately going to feel the benefits of the refinement and the much more logical and much cleaner interfaces and the much more spacious interior. But if you're looking for a more luxurious car, something that feels like you're getting perhaps a little more for your money in terms of interior build quality, there's other cars I'd point you towards. So that's been everything from me. Thank you so much for taking the time to watching this video. Please like the video if you liked it and share it if you think other people will like it too. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button just down below, that greatly improves my self-esteem. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again here soon.